Hey guys, tonight we're drifting back in time way back. You're not scrolling your phone anymore. You're not in your bed. You're floating above a thick jungle canopy, somewhere in ancient Southeast Asia, where the trees hum with crickets and the earth hasn't yet learned to keep secrets. Below you, a river that glows in the moonlight like molten jade, winding through misty valleys older than your nightmares. This is the land that would become Vietnam. But tonight, it's just raw land and unspoken promises. You probably won't survive this without getting at least a little enchanted. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where everyone's dreaming from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You have her there, somewhere between sleep and story. And you begin to hear it, the wind whispering in a language too old for books. The leaves rustle in rhythm, like a lullaby sung by the land itself. You descend slowly, feet brushing wet grass, and step into a world shaped not by history books, but by memory passed between generations like rice seeds. This is the beginning not of a chapter, but of a world. And every world needs a spark. That spark is conflict between sea and land, spirit and flesh, fire and water. The ancients believed this land was once ruled not by humans, but by dragons. And sure, your irrational brain is already rolling its eyes. But you've got to admit, dragons explain a lot. Volcanoes, dragon breath, river floods, tail swipes, emotional damage. Okay, that one's on you. You move deeper into the forest, following the faint beat of a drum hung low and steady, like a giant heart buried beneath the soil. The air thickens, you feel it. Something or someone is watching. And then, between the trees, you glimpse a figure. Not entirely human. Not entirely not. A man with the eyes of an ocean storm. LCC Longkorn. Historians still argue whether he was an early deity, a symbolic ancestor, or just an awesome metaphor for the coastal clans. But to the people of this land, he was real. A dragon prince from the sea, protector, warrior, and, as you'll soon see, one half of the strangest love story in Vietnamese lore. As you crouch by the river, watching him walk barefoot across the water like it's glass, you feel a chill because something else is coming. Not a storm, a change. In the air, in the earth. You look up and see her. You see a fairy, but not the winged, glitter-dusted kind. She's regal, radiant, glowing with the calm of 1,000 dawns. A mountain spirit. Her hair moves like smoke. Her voice, though she hasn't spoken yet, seems to reach into your ribs and rearrange your heartbeat. The two meet, and yeah, maybe you expected fireworks, but this is older than fire. They don't float. They just know. He, the ocean's pulse. She, the mountain's breath. They don't fall in love. They recognize each other. You stand very still, pretending not to watch. But they don't care. You are dust compared to what's happening here. Their union becomes legend. They marry. The land breathes easier. Crops flourish. Rivers stay in their beds, somewhere deep in the earth. Those drums beat faster, like even the gods are clapping. And then, because balance always demands its due comes, the miracle and the warning. You see lays an egg sac. Hold your disbelief for a second, because this isn't your typical royal birth announcement. From this strange, sacred egg come 100 sons. Not 10, not twins. 100. You think your family reunions are chaotic? Try feeding 100 toddlers with divine energy and ancestral purpose. You try to picture it, young boys running through endless fields, learning to wrestle, to chant old names, to shape the land and listen to its moods, each one born of magic and myth, and each destined to become the root of 1,000 branches. But as time passes, you notice something strange between the parents. LCC Longcorn feels the call of the sea again, like homesickness that never heals. You see, meanwhile, is tethered to the highlands, to the sky-kissed rocks and whispering wines. It's not a fight, it's a pull, a quiet one, but relentless. And just like that, their unity dissolves not in anger, but in nature. They speak softly. He says, "You take 50 suns to the mountains." She nods. "You take 50 to the sea." You blink. That's it. No betrayal. No reality TV-style breakdown. Just cosmic parenting, split neatly by geography. Apparently, yes, because this isn't about heartbreak, it's about foundation. The beginning of everything. The seeds of a nation scattered intentionally. Land and sea, forest and shore. As you watch them part ways, the suns trailing after them like fireflies, you feel something settle in your chest. A weight, a promise. Because from these suns will rise the kings. 18 of them, each with a story, each with a lesson. And you're going to walk alongside every single one. And just for the record, there's no way you're ready. You're still standing there in the damp grass, stunned, while the mist curls around your ankles like curious cats. The echoes of 100 footsteps, 50 headed to the coast, 50 to the hills fade like breath on glass. But your feet pull you inland, up where the rocks are older and the wind speaks in full sentences. This is the path of the first Hun king, the eldest of the 100 sons. Chosen by destiny, or perhaps by birth order, the historical paperwork is a bit fuzzy, to become the ruler of the fledgling realm. He's not wearing a crown. Not yet. He wears a woven tunic, soft bark sandals, and a look like he's already aged 10 years from responsibility. You follow him as he climbs a ridge where the earth flattens into a view of what will someday be Father. But right now, it's trees and streams, and the occasional very judgmental buffalo. This young man stakes a pole into the soil. No lightning strikes, no ghostly cheer, just one deep breath. Then he says, "Here." That's it. That's where Văn Lang is born, Vietnam's first kingdom. And you were expecting a parade. Historians still argue whether Văn Lang truly existed as a kingdom, or was more of a tribal confederacy. But go ahead. Try to tell that to the mossy hills and stone altars you pass. Everything here feels old on purpose. The first king doesn't build a palace. He builds trust with the land, with the river gods, with his own people. You walk through small villages as they take root, clusters of stilt houses, smoke curling from bamboo chimneys, women pounding rice with a rhythm that keeps time better than your smartwatch ever could. Children dart past with painted faces, pretending to be warriors or cranes. Or is that a monkey with a ceremonial headdress? Probably. The king, now Hung Vibon the First, doesn't rule from afar. He sits with the elders. He listens to fishermen. He eats the same sticky rice with sesame salt as everyone else. And yes, he's still trying to figure out what that one herb in the soup is. No one will tell him. It's a grammar thing. At night, by the fire, he tells stories to keep the people's hearts brave. Stories of his mother, you see, and how she could talk to the clouds. Stories of his father, LCC Longcorn, who once taught sea monsters to swim in circles, so they'd stop beaching themselves on purpose. Okay, maybe that part's a bit dramatized, but the people listen, and slowly. He becomes more than a man, he becomes a symbol, a walking myth, not because he asks for it, but because legends are the only currency that inflation can touch. A quirky little side fact: the people of Văn Lang didn't write much down. Instead, they carved, they sang, and they tattooed their history onto their own skin. So somewhere out there, possibly buried beneath centuries of mud and moss, might be the chest of a fisherman that holds the lost tax code of 2879 BCE, give or take a century. You walk with the king through his fields, where the first generations of wet rice cultivation are being mastered. You wouldn't think watering grass is revolutionary, but in this swampy land of dragons and ghosts, taming a rice paddy is like creating edible poetry. Every stalk holds a meal, every meal holds peace. And peace, that's a bigger crown than gold. But not everyone's sold on this peace thing. Already, you hear whispers of discontent. The neighboring tribes aren't all thrilled about this whole one king, one land vibe. A few believe they should rule, others think they should stay separate. And some just want their stolen pig back and are willing to go to war for it. The young king barely, more than a boy, must now decide. How do you defend something that's only just begun? His answer: ritual, ceremony, and a very stern-looking man named LCC High, who becomes his second-in-command, spiritual advisor, and, occasionally, crisis therapist. As you watch the king light incense at a stone altar, the air around you thickens with meaning. These aren't just symbolic acts. They're agreements with the ancestors, with the land, with the people yet to be born. And you're starting to understand why this story still lives in Vietnamese hearts. Because the king isn't just building a country. He's building a memory. One that will stretch through 18 generations. One that will include heroes and betrayals. Talking animals and celestial signs. Rice cakes and epic floods. Drums that speak and daughters that vanish. And the strange thing is, you believe it all. You wake to drums, not the subtle heartbeat thuds from before, no. These are louder now, hungrier. It's morning in Văn Lang, and everything's moving. The rice fields glisten, the fire pits smoke, and somewhere, the second Hun king is being handed a ceremonial pearl. Because apparently leadership here involves boats, too. You glance over and realize you've traveled forward a generation. Humvibang I has passed, not in battle, but quietly, under a banyan tree after planting its last sapling. His eldest son now takes the helm, not just of a kingdom, but of a growing expectation. Keep the dream alive, or vanish into folklore before lunch. Unlike his father, this king doesn't walk barefoot. He wears embroidered sandals and carries a staff tipped with bronze. It jingles slightly when he walks, like it's laughing at gravity. He's confident, maybe too confident. You know the type, but the realm needs confidence. The land's getting crowded. New villages sprout like mushrooms after monsoon. Bamboo forests are being cleared. Boats crowd rivers like rush hour traffic on the Mekong. And somewhere in the hills, another tribe bangs their drums not in rhythm, but in challenge. The king responds not with war, but with a festival. Historians still argue whether these early spring festivals were religious, political, or just excuses to dance awkwardly with strangers. But from your view in the crowd, they serve all three purposes, and throw in some fermented rice, wine for good measure, and then, center stage, comes something unexpected. The first ever Bancheng and Bangiji contest. A cooking competition. Yeah. You didn't expect MasterChef, Bronze Age edition, did you? Legend says the second king wants to choose his heir not by birth order, but by wisdom. So he asks his sons, bring me a dish that captures the essence of the land. They panic. Some bring exotic meats. One guy shows up with a whole roasted turtle. Bold move. It does not win. But one quiet son, Lang Liu, shows up with 2 humble rice cakes. One square, one round. He says, this one is the earth, this one is the sky. Everyone laughs at first. Then they taste it. Sticky, simple, soulful. You bite into a piece yourself and, yeah, it tastes like home, even if you've never been here before. The king tears up, not just because it's poetic, but because it's practical. Rice is sacred, rice is survival, and a king who understands that is worth keeping around. Lang Liu becomes next in line. The rest of the brothers try not to look salty, but at least there's cake. Quirky fact, the round rice cake was originally meant to represent the sun. But somewhere along the way, it got associated with the sky because of translation chaos. Language, still the most powerful ingredient. As you follow the new air into the next year, you notice something shifting. The people begin to create bronze tools, better farming methods, and more structured society. They've discovered that if you hit copper and tin together with a rock and some heat, you get something strong, enough to build a future and light, enough to throw at your enemies. Craftsmen set up shop, carving weapons and ornaments. Women begin dyeing fabric with crushed leaves and get this boiled. Insect shells, yeah. Beauty is pain, and also crunchy. But peace doesn't last forever. It never does. Far to the north, strange messengers arrive, tall men with scripts carved on bones. Speaking of emperors and taxes and civilization, the hung court listens politely, then promptly ignores them. For now. Still, the ripples are starting. Foreign ideas, foreign eyes, you feel it. The calm before the 1,000-year storm. But here, for one last season, the fields hum. The rivers smile. Children race water buffalo through green hills. The king plants his own rice, barefoot in the mud, laughing as it squelches up to his knees. He's not pretending to be of the people. He is. The drumbeats fade as dusk rolls in. The kingdom sleeps again. But you lie awake, thinking about square cakes, sky gods, and how ruling a nation might really be just learning when to listen. Because out here, under the stars, the only real rule is this: the land remembers everything. You sit beneath a canopy of bamboo, sipping something suspiciously herbal from a clay cup, and listen to the next drum roll of history. The third Han king has taken the throne, but not through violence or betrayal, just time. Generations pass here like soft wind. Sometimes you don't notice until your sandals don't fit anymore. This king's reign marks something different. Not bigger temples, not sharper swords. No, this era is all about drums. Massive, round, bronze drums. You first hear one echo across a valley at sunrise, the sound bouncing like thunder inside a bell. They call them Engisilan drums, icons of the Hong Isen culture. Not just for music, they are calendars, altars, status symbols, time machines, in a way. Each swirl, bud, or dancer etched into them tells a story without needing words. You run your fingers along the drum's edge and feel the rigid solar spirals. Warriors marching, herons in flight. It's more alive than any scroll. The beat pulses in your chest, and suddenly, you're no longer an outsider. You are part of the rhythm. Historians still argue whether these drums were made solely for ritual use or used in warfare to command troops across muddy battlefields. You're leaning toward both, especially after watching a village chief bang one during a rain prayer, then immediately yell at his nephew for forgetting the pig. This era sees more than music, it sees a cultural bloom. Weaving grows ornate. Houses stand taller, roofs arching like waves. Tattoos become elaborate, swirling across backs like ancestral maps. You spot a woman with a crane etched across her collarbone. She says it guides her dreams. Okay, sure. And then there's language. Still no alphabet, but oral poetry flourishes. Riddles, proverbs, chants, all encoded with memory. Kids learn to speak through metaphor. You hear one child describe the moon as grandmother's silver toenail, and honestly, it sticks. A fringe theory floats among the elders that humans once spoke with animals, but lost the ability because they asked too many questions. You smile at this, then watch a cat give a suspicious side-eye, as if it remembers. The kingdom's borders stretch wider now. The border is a loose term. It's more about shared rivers, common rituals, and knowing when the neighbor's drums signal marriage or invasion. You help rebuild a thatched roof after a windstorm and realize this is nationhood, not drawn on a map but lived in every gesture. You travel with envoys to outer regions. One village worships stone turtles, another names all newborns after types of rain. The diversity is staggering. but no one's trying to erase it. The king's rule is less. One law fits all and more. Don't be a jerk and plant enough rice. Quirky side note, tooth blackening becomes fashionable. That's right, jet black teeth, gleaming like polished obsidian. Beauty, purity, and dental resilience all in one terrifying grin. You try it once, you regret it for 3 days. Still, it's a sign of the times people investing in aesthetics, self-expression, and identity. This isn't survival anymore. It's style. The third king, now older, spends his twilight years touring his land. Not as ruler, as student. He listens to flute songs from a blind man on a raft. He learns a lullaby from a woman who's never heard of kings. He laughs more, rules less, trusts the land to teach. And you begin to understand that this story isn't linear. It loops, it echoes, it breathes. You hear another drum, a deeper one, the signal that a new king will rise. And as the villagers gather, some crying, some already gossiping about the heir, you see that what really holds this kingdom together isn't bronze, or ice, or river gods. It's memory, it's rhythm, and just maybe, it's you. Quirky side note, tooth blackening becomes fashionable. That's right, jet black teeth, gleaming like polished obsidian. Beauty, purity, and dental resilience all in one terrifying grin. You try it once, you regret it for 3 days. Still, it's a sign of the times people investing in aesthetics, self-expression, and identity. This isn't survival anymore. It's style. The third king, now older, spends his twilight years touring his land. Not as ruler, as student. He listens to flute songs from a blind man on a raft. He learns a lullaby from a woman who's never heard of kings. He laughs more, rules less, trusts the land to teach. And you begin to understand that this story isn't linear. It loops, it echoes, it breathes. You hear another drum, a deeper one, the signal that a new king will rise. And as the villagers gather, some crying, some already gossiping about the heir, you see that what really holds this kingdom together isn't bronze, or ice, or river gods. It's memory, it's rhythm, and just maybe, it's you. You're walking now barefoot again, because apparently sandals just can't keep up with you along the muddy banks of the Red River, where the fourth Hun King has begun a bold experiment. Centralization. Not the boring kind with scrolls and tax codes, but the living kind, with roads carved by hand, and rivers rerouted like tangled yon.com. Everything's moving. Villages that once eyed each other suspiciously are now part of a loose-knit federation. The king calls it unity. The elders call it risky. You just call it loud because everyone's shouting over one another in different dialects, arguing whether fish sauce counts as a bribe. A historical fact emerges like a fish from the mist. This is the time when wet rice cultivation becomes organized. Entire communities dig canals, plant in unison, and celebrate harvests with trance dancing and boat races. You join one race. Your boat capsizes in 5 seconds. Humbling.com. Historians still argue whether this agricultural boom came from indigenous innovation or contact with southern Chinese farming communities. Either way, rice stops being a sacred mystery and becomes an industrial art. You see it everywhere, drying in courtyards, steaming in baskets, glued to a child's cheek. The king himself leads by example. He is not above plunging his royal ankles into swamp mud, grinning as he plants the first seedlings of the season. It's performative, sure, but also sincere. This king wants legacy, not legend. A system, not just a shrine. What's quirky here? Pigs start getting tattoos. No joke. Farmers mark them with geometric designs to identify ownership. It's like livestock QR codes, except inked by moonlight and blessed by forest spirits. You scratch one behind the ear. It snorts in appreciation. As the infrastructure expands, so does the sense of shared identity. Villagers now send their best youths to the capital for training not just in war, but in music, medicine, and storytelling. You listen to a healer recite plant names in a sing-song cadence, each with a memory hook, the line between doctor and poet, non-existent. The capital, meanwhile, begins to form its own character, built on stilts above a lotus swamp. It smells like incense and roasted duck. Monkeys hang from wooden rafters. Drums echo from every direction. It feels less like a throne room and more like a music festival that someone forgot to end. But beneath the songs, you sense tension rising. With unity comes disagreement. Some nobles want to build stone palaces. Others say that's arrogant. The land is soft. Let the rulers be softer. Debates erupt in courtyards over roasted snails and bowls of sour soup. You sit in one meeting for hours and leave with nothing. Resolved except a shared hatred of boiled tar. And then, like thunder behind a mountain, rumors arrive. Northern traders bringing silk, salt, and strange ideas. Maps drawn with straight lines. Codes written on bamboo slats. A belief that one emperor should rule under heaven. The king listens, nods politely, and then commissions his own map on buffalo hide, featuring dragons, spirals, and no straight lines whatsoever. Message received. The scholars gather late one night and whisper of things to come. Empires, gods that need temples with roofs. But you sit quietly with a village child, who teaches you a song about frogs predicting rain. You hum it later, and it works. It rains. The fourth king dies in spring, not in battle, not from sickness, just stops, as if he's poured everything into the land, and there's nothing left to give. The people don't mourn with wailing, they beat drums, slow, heavy, thankful. You walk the muddy roads he helped build, passing traders, priests, weavers, warriors, all carrying something forward. You think, maybe unity isn't about sameness. Maybe it's just about listening long enough for a beat you can walk to. You crouch on the edge of a market stall, watching a hawk circle overhead, and realize the fifth Hun King's reign is all about layers. Layers of clothing, layers of politics, and layers of secrets no one really wants to admit are there. This is the age of ritualized power where every decision must be blessed, sung, danced and double-checked with the spirits. A mainstream, historical shift unfolds quietly. Ancestor worship becomes deeply embedded. Not just lighting incense for grandma. No, entire state decisions hinge on dreams interpreted from ancestral signs. If a chief's uncle sneezes 3 times in a row during a thunderstorm, cancel the wedding. Prepare for war. Historians still argue whether the Hun Kings themselves were deified during their lives or only after death. But right now, you watch villagers carve wooden effigies of living kings, dressed in bright silks, with eyes that seem to follow you when you move. Yeah, very comforting. You're invited to a midsummer festival. There's fermented rice wine served in communal jars with long bamboo straws. People are very serious about getting the top spot on the straw. You lose, twice. Someone laughs and hands you dried fish. The ceremonies start at sunset. Firelight flickers across painted faces. You watch a shaman enter trance, speaking in a voice that sounds suspiciously like her mother-in-law. Spirits of the land, water, sky, they all demand attention now. And attention they get. The fifth king leans into this spiritual model, creating a network of sacred sites connected by oral roots. You memorize 17 hills, a stone shaped like a crab, the tree that sings when it rains. You swear it really does sing. Quick detail, this is the period where dogs are trained to guard shrines, not with barking, but with specific howls. Each tone means something. Intruder, snake, lost child. You try howling back. A dog stares at you like you've insulted his entire lineage. But deeper beneath the ceremonies is a slow, creeping change. Class. Nobles begin wearing elaborate headdresses. Commoners wear plain cloth. You see a blacksmith reprimanded for speaking too casually to a priest. Before, everyone ate around the same fire. Now, some fires burn higher. Still, the king walks among his people, not always visibly, sometimes as rumor, sometimes disguised. There's a tale of him eating dumplings in a fishing village, while debating ill metaphors with an old woman. She supposedly won. You try the dumplings. They're amazing. Education becomes its own kind of magic. Elders train children not just in rice and river but in metaphors. One child says, "When the wind bends the bamboo teaches the wind." You nod like you understand. You don't. You feel language evolving again. Still no script. But now, people name things with stories. A rock becomes sleeping dragon. A hill becomes drunken uncle's elbow. It's efficient, in a chaotic kind of way. Then, one night, while camping near a spirit grove, you hear the king's voice. Not booming, gentle. He speaks of balance, of living between the visible and invisible, of ruling not through fear but familiarity. You turn, expecting to see him. There's no one there. But the next morning, villagers say the king passed through, left behind 3 things: a lotus flower, a cracked drum, and a sleeping dog. You realize this is the king who doesn't need to be seen to be known. And somehow, that's enough. You wake up to the smell of grilled fish and sweet banana leaves apparently. Breakfast is taken seriously during the 6th Han King's reign. The kingdom of Van Lang is humming now, not just with ritual and myth, but with everyday noise, laughter, trade, marriage negotiations, and a surprisingly heated debate over whether eels are snakes or just confused fish. This king is less shaman, more organizer. He focuses on the everyday, the kind of king who invents a new tax system and still shows up for his niece's rice harvest dance. Agricultural villages flourish, thanks to innovations in irrigation and crop rotation. Farmers build low bamboo dams. Children help direct water with wooden paddles. You try it. You flood someone's duck coop. Oops. Quirky detail. This is when roosters start getting trained to fight, but only on ceremonial days. These feathered gladiators are heroes in their own right. One even gets a tiny bronze crown. You're not sure whether to laugh or salute. The king standardizes weaving techniques. Cloth patterns are no longer just decorative, they become status symbols. You're handed a tunic with fishbone embroidery and wand. This means you're someone's cousin, but not too important. Duly noted, historians still argue whether the Van Lang economy at this stage was fully centralized or remained semi-tribal. You can see both sides. Regional lords still run their own rice festivals, but the king's sila, stylized turtle with wings, is stamped on every major village transaction. You wander into a workshop. Bronze smelting has become an art. The heat, the clang, the sweat. You try to forge a spoon. It turns out more like a melted frog. They hang it on the wall anyway. Modern art, they say. Society here runs on trade. But not just good stories travel like coins. You hear one about a woman who married a river and gave birth to mist. Another about a boy who turned into a buffalo horn to escape taxes. No one agrees if they're true. No one cares. They feel true. There's also a culinary renaissance. Sticky rice is layered with herbs, salted duck eggs, pickled vegetables. And brace yourself a sauce made from fermented ants. You try it. It's an experience. Spicy, sour, existential. Festivals are frequent and ridiculously specific. One village holds an annual "We didn't drown this year" parade where elders are carried around in baskets, while youths chant praise to the river gods. You get roped in. Your basket tips again. The king begins a project called the Whisper Scroll. A traveling oral poem meant to bind all regions through shared lines. It changes slightly with each recitation. You hear 3 versions in 1 week. All are beautiful. None match That's the point. But chained brews, too. You overhear traders speaking of people far to the north with chariots and iron blades. Others speak of islands to the south where people wear shells and worship crocodiles. Bounties blur. The world grows wider. The king hosts a midnight council. No weapons, no drums, just candles and open hands. He speaks of peace like a farmer speaks of rainfall, with hope and no guarantee. You nod along. So does the council. Then someone sneezes, and they all scatter like pigeons. Superstitions die hard. Your journey takes you through villages where elders still sing of the very first Hung King, but now with more detail, more emotion. The past is becoming sacred. You ask someone when the legend truly began. They say, now. It always begins now. You find yourself deep in a forest where the trees seem to lean in, listening. The seventh Hun King rules not just from his court, but from these very woods at least. According to villagers who swear he walks the trails barefoot, disguised as a wandering herbalist. You test this theory by offering mushrooms to a stranger with twinkly eyes. He just laughs and says, only the poisonous ones tell the truth. Great. Now you're paranoid about lunch. This is the age of spiritual consolidation, a fusion of ancestor, reverence with nature worship, and the rise of the forest oracles. Female seers believed to channel both plant wisdom and ancestral voices. You meet one. She offers you tea made from bark, stares at your palms, and whispers, "You're allergic to frogs." Weirdly, she's right. Historians still argue whether these oracles held actual political power or served more symbolic roles. But what you see is influence. Local chiefs wait for their approval before planting or going to war. One refuses to marry until an oracle dreams of a deer wearing bells. The dream finally comes. The wedding is wild. The king sends envoys to record visions, prophecies, and natural omens. One tablet reads, 2 sons will fight above the rice paddies. Later, a double rainbow appears. Same difference. Everyone cheers. Quirky footnote. This is when the feather messages. Trend starts messages tied to bird legs and sent through dense forest. Pigeons are too mainstream. These folks use hornbills, crows, and even the occasional hawk. One message just says, don't forget the fish sauce. Critical intel. Ceremonial dances evolve into full theatrical performances. You attend a shadow play about a frog prince, a talking stone, and a village lost in fog. The actors use banana leaves as puppets, lit from behind by flickering torches. It's haunting and hilarious. Life here balances between nature and structure. The calendar is still lunar, but now includes spirit days, when no one works, not even the goats. You try explaining this concept to your inner productivity app. It crashes. Agricultural tools improve again. Farmers now use buffalo-drawn plows, and harvest festivals become epic events. You witness a rice god parade, featuring a person in a straw suit being worshipped, fed, and then playfully dunked in a mud pit. They call it ritual soaking. You get splashed. You now smell like heritage. The king encourages artistic storytelling. Bards carry harps strung with river crab tendons, singing tales of heroic kings and naughty spirits. One ballad ends with a ghost eating a pineapple upside down. The meaning is unclear. Everyone claps anyway. You explore a grove where children are told not to speak out loud, only to whisper, so the spirits can nap. The trees rustle in agreement. You whisper too. It feels respectful. A new idea begins to float through the kingdom. Unity through mystery. Don't question the gods too loudly. Don't map the stars too precisely. Let some things remain sacred and solved. Not ignorance, just reverence. You nod slowly. And then one evening, beside a lotus-filled pond, you hear an elder say, "The king has started dreaming of iron." That word again, iron. You realize the forest is listening to because the winds shift. The birds fall silent. And for the first time in days, your skin prickles like something older than you is watching. Something coming. You descend from the misty hills just in time to see a caravan. A rye of oxen pulling carts of salt, ceramics, smoked river eel, and bundles of strange cloth that shimmer like fish scales. Trade is no longer a side quest. It's the main game now. The ninth Hun King has turned Văn Lang into a crossroads. Boats from the coast glide upstream, their sails painted with moon symbols and bird feet. One trader swears he sailed past a dragon once. Another insists it was just a drunk dolphin. Either way, everyone's listening. You wander through a market alive with sound gongs, clinking bronze, the sizzle of something vaguely edible and hot stones. Merchants argue over chicken teeth and whether ants can be trained. They can't. You tried. But beneath the color and clamor, there's a new hum in the air. Talk of conflict, not war. Exactly. But unease. Iron blades have been spotted crude, yes, but sharper than anything bronze can match. Historians still argue whether these early iron tools came through peaceful trade or quiet invasion. You meet a smith who shows you one such blade. It's ugly and terrifying. To combat this shift, the king sets up what is essentially a national innovation challenge. Villages compete to create better tools, faster carts, and new cooking methods. One team invents sticky rice skewers. Another claims they've trained otters to catch fish. You're skeptical until an otter drops a carp at your feet, bows, and waddles away. Okay then. Religion adapts, too. New spirits are absorbed into local pantheons. A god of salt joins the ranks, alongside the more traditional rice and thunder deities. You're offered a salt-crusted rice cake in his honor. It's intense, like licking history. A royal edict encourages inter-village storytelling festivals. Think TED Talks, but with more face paint and fewer buzzwords. One speaker tells the tale of a thunder lizard who cursed anyone who forgot to thank their ancestors. You nervously bow to every tree for the next hour. Quirky fact: children begin playing a game called Catch the Thunder, a mix of tag, hide and seek, and ritual chanting. It's adorable until they start throwing damp leaves at your face and declaring you the rain demon. You play along, you lose. Meanwhile, salt becomes the real kingmaker. It's essential for preservation, trade, and ceremonial offerings. Entire villages spring up around salt marshes. You try helping with the harvest, it's backbreaking, sunburnt work. But at night, when the crystals glow under moonlight, it feels like magic hardened into earth. The king hosts a great salt feast, where every dish is cured, brined, or fermented. Even the desserts. You've never wept over salty fruit until now. A scholar leans in and whispers, salt remembers things. You don't ask for clarification, you just nod. But it's not all pickled fish and peace treaties. Rumors creep in from the northern hills for in shadows gathering, sharper weapons, new gods who don't ask permission. The court discusses alliances, training, defenses. You see the king touch his chest absent-mindedly, where a small bronze turtle hangs. He's worried, everyone is. That night, in a dream that may not be yours, a voice echoes through your skull. The rivers will turn red if the iron walks freely. You wake up to the sound of distant drums, and a horn made of snail shell blowing somewhere in the trees. The drums don't stop. For 3 days straight, they echo across the valleys long. Low beats followed by sharp cracks, like thunder trying to remember something. You follow them until you arrive at a clearing, where warriors in woven armor are sparring, their bronze-tipped spears glinting like lightning. The 10th Hun King has launched what you might call the first national boot camp. But this isn't about conquering. It's about holding the line. Because beyond the hills, iron-wielding outsiders may be proto-UA, maybe myth. Maybe both have been spotted probing the edges of the kingdom. Still, instead of panic, you sense resolve. The king issues a decree. Let strength grow like bamboo, hollow enough to bend, but sharp enough to pierce. You love a poetic king, and you love the training songs even more shanty. Rhythmic, slightly off-key, like someone trying to rap underwater. Quirky tidbit: Soldiers are trained using live geese as alarm systems. If you can sneak past 5 angry geese and not lose a toe, you're good enough for guard duty. You fail spectacularly. The geese remember your face. Meanwhile, the kingdom doubles down on culture. Ritual bronze drums grow in size and complexity. One drum is so large it takes 8 people to play, and when they do, it's like the heartbeat of the mountains themselves joins the rhythm. The king insists the drums are not just instruments, they're memory. You believe him. Historians still argue whether these large drums were used solely for ceremonies or had military signaling purposes. You watch as one is struck 5 times before a scout returns with news. An envoy from the east is requesting entry. The envoy brings gifts: silk dyed with crushed beetles, a chicken that supposedly predicts eclipses, and something suspiciously like fermented shark. It smells assertive. Still, diplomacy wins the day. The king accepts the gifts, but quietly orders the border fortifications doubled. You notice a shift in the way the people move. The festivals continue, oh yes. There's even a frog dumping competition in honor of the rain god. But there's more structure now, more coordination, a feeling that Văn Lang has become something more than a collection of villagers. You stumble into a village mid-ritual. They're blessing a new well, and the elder insists you help by tossing in a carved turtle made of sticky rice. You comply. It dissolves instantly. The children cheer like you've slain a dragon. That night, beside a moonlit pond, a bard plays a melancholy tune on a jaw harp made from copper and bark. He sings of kings and battles, but ends with a whisper. Even mountains sleep, but not forever. The Hun King watches all this from his throne still. Woven reeds and dragon patterns, but now flanked by guards with smarter armor and iron-flecked blades. You see the tension in his shoulders. He knows what you now know. Change is no longer coming. It's already here. The night sky feels swollen, almost electric. You lie on a woven mat under whispering palms when the 11th Hun King's court goes silent. A streak of fire cuts across the stars, a phoenix-shaped comet. Some say. Others say it's a bird made of time itself. You say, that's probably not good. And no one laughs. The king takes it as an omen. Within days, he orders temples built at the highest peaks, altars facing the horizon where the firebird disappeared. You hike to one, breath short, legs sore. The temple smells like burnt cinnamon and old smoke. A priestess tells you the stars write letters, but only madman read them aloud. Quirky note: villagers begin folding paper birds to send prayers upward. One child insists hers flew all the way to the moon. Another uses banana leaves his flies directly into a pig pen. Meanwhile, the king begins having visions. Not dreams, full-on astral projections, according to court gossip. He speaks in riddles, scribbles spiral diagrams, and insists the rice god now wears shoes. Courtiers politely nod while hiding their confusion behind ceremonial fans. One day, the king emerges from a trance and declares a 3-day silence decree. No one is allowed to speak unless singing. What follows is the most tuneless festival of humming, off-key chanting, and operatic grocery shopping you've ever endured. It's horrible. It's beautiful. It oddly works. Historians still argue whether the firebird omen was tied to a real astronomical event, like Halley's Comet or a meteor storm. The timing aligns suspiciously with bronze. Age sky charts found later in Hong SN relics, inspired or terrified. The king invests in celestial calendars. The court mathematician invents a way to track eclipses using a hollow gourd, 6 pebbles, and an egret's feather. You ask for a demonstration. The math is sound. The feather, mostly decorative. Trade routes shift again. New fabrics arrive so soft they feel like stolen clouds. A foreign visitor brings something spicy that makes you cry and crave more. Diplomats from strange southern kingdoms speak in riddles and wear pants, stitched with goldfish scales. But there's tension. As spiritual awareness grows, so does court paranoia. who interprets omens correctly, who's just making stuff up for clout. The king hosts a public riddle contest to determine who gets access to his dreams. The winner, a mute boy who answers every question by drawing squirrels. His final squirrel drawing resembles a map. It leads to a freshwater spring beneath a stone shaped like a rabbit. The court is baffled. The king is thrilled. One night, as you sleep beside the spring, something rustles the leaves. You open your eyes to find a figure in a feathered robe, face painted with stars. They whisper, "He's dreaming of endings now," then vanish. You return to the capital as the king unveils a massive bronze phoenix statue. It's hollow, lined with chimes that ring in the wind. "So the heavens know we're listening," he says. You're starting to believe he might be right. You wake to the sound of the bronze phoenix ringing soft, eerie, like wind chimes in a dream you can't quite leave. The 12th Hung King has passed, peacefully, they say, in his sleep, wrapped in cloud-patterned cloth, surrounded by songs. But you see it in the faces around you. Everyone knew it was coming, and still, no one was ready. The mourning lasts 9 days. No drums, no markets. People whisper blessings into bundles of incense and float them downriver. You watch as the smoke and mist swirl together, a kingdom exhaling grief. Quirky custom. Villagers carve tiny boats from beetle nut husks, each carrying a grain of salt, a sliver of garlic, and a single hair. It's meant to ward off lingering spirits who haven't found their way yet. Yours tips over immediately, hopefully not a metaphor. A young successor rises barely out of adolescence, the son of a lesser queen, but sharp, curious, and unusually interested in infrastructure. His first decree, stone roads, not just dirt trails packed by sandals, but real, permanent roads lined with shellcrete and hardwood. Your feet thank him, your horseless cart, not so much. Under this king, the capital transforms. The palisades become tiered bamboo scaffolding, then actual brick-like fortifications. Using a mud-hardened mix, your shore would survive a typhoon. The marketplace swells with goods from all over, firewood carvings from the mountains, dyed indigo cloth, smoked river mussels, clay masks of spirits you hope never to meet. And yet, beneath the hustle, a new anxiety brews. Tribes to the west grow bolder, sending scouts with more armor than manners. A border village goes silent for a week. When someone finally returns, they speak of warriors in feathered helmets, who chant while sharpening blades that gleam like liquid dusk. Historians still argue whether these were early Austro-Asiatic incursions or merely trade disputes gone too far. Either way, the king doesn't wait. He commissions the first royal signal towers, built on high ridges with mirrors and smoke flares. Communication becomes near magical. From the coast to the forests, messages can fly in under a day if the clouds behave. But the king doesn't just fortify. He inspires. A national contest launches. Create a tale worthy of the ancestors. Storytellers, musicians, and dancers gather to weave epics by firelight. You attend one performance where a woman sings in 6 different bird dialects. You have no idea what's happening, but it's incredible. One winning tale involves a rice grain who travels the underworld to rescue a trapped fisherman. The rice grain is heroic, a little sarcastic, and voiced by a guy with a frog puppet. The children love it. So do the elders. You leave humming the chorus. Sticky rice, sticky fate. Don't forget your brother's plate. At the king's urging, these stories are engraved onto ceramic drums and lacquered panels, creating what may be the earliest form of comic books in Southeast Asia. One historian swears. The panels depict time travelers. You're not saying it's aliens, but the frog puppet looks suspiciously modern. As the dry season ends, the rivers rise and the capital hosts a flood blessing festival. Boats shaped like dragons and buffalo float downstream with lanterns tied to their horns. You ride one drenched, delighted, and slightly afraid of capsizing. But when the crowd erupts in laughter, you realize this is resilience, disguised as celebration. And somewhere, at the edge of your hearing, the bronze phoenix rings again. By now, the kingdom breathes in rhythm. The rice sprouts with the drums, the rivers pulse to moon cycles, and under the 13th Hung King, everything seems stable, almost suspiciously so. You feel it to like the calm between two enormous waves. The new king is older, quiet, and strangely obsessed with fish. Not just eating them through the royal kitchens, now serve caramelized catfish on everything, but studying their migrations, their scales, their behavior before storms. He claims fish know when empires tremble. You're not entirely convinced. Still, he's got a point about tuna predicting tides. In this era, bronze tools become widespread. You see farmers wielding curved sickles etched with tiny dragons, children chasing frogs with bronze-tipped nets, and artisans crafting water vessels shaped like dewdrops. The technology flows through the land like rain into paddy fields. It elevates everything. Quirky tidbit: the king builds a floating library, a barge filled with scrolls that sails from village to village, spreading knowledge and occasionally capsizing. You help rescue a soggy book titled How to Talk to Trees. It makes more sense than expected. One curious development: royal astrologers begin charting personality traits based on birth animals. Sound familiar? Yup, this might be the ancestor of the Vietnamese zodiac. People start avoiding certain foods on certain days, wearing goat hair scarves for luck, and blaming every argument on Mercury swimming backward. Historians still argue whether this king was responsible for merging spirit worship with emerging lunar cosmology, but inscriptions from this time hint at a blend ancestral rites, timed with celestial alignments. You attend one ceremony on a cliffside during a blood moon. There are gongs, dances, and a goat wearing a ceremonial vest. You cry, but can't explain why. Tensions rise again, not from war, but water. The Red River floods higher than ever recorded, swallowing fields and entire granaries. Crops rot, people starve. You help stack emergency rice bricks, each wrapped in banana leaves and optimism. The king does not abandon his people. He walks the flooded paths barefoot, handing out food and hope in equal measure. To recover, he launches a monumental canal project. Thousands dig by hand, singing work chants that get stuck in your head for weeks. The canal eventually links to trade routes and earns a nickname: the river that wears a crown. You bathe in it once and immediately lose a sandal to history. During all this, his spiritual renaissance bubbles quietly. You meet a wandering monk who claims to have been struck by lightning and now hears stone spirits complain about erosion. He's surprisingly popular. The people embrace new temples carved directly into cliff faces, half shrine, half fortress, all stunning. And still, fish feature in everything. The king's last decree is the creation of a sacred koi sanctuary, where no fishing is allowed and the koi are said to grant dreams. You spend a night beside the pond, dreaming of a future Vietnam filled with dragons, motorcycles, and iced coffee. The koi wink at you. When the king finally passes, the fish stop swimming for a day. Also, the legend goes, the 14th Hung King rises not with ceremony, but with a single thunderclap that splits a tree outside the royal hall. People murmur that it's a sign. You're just glad no one was under it. Still, the air feels charged, like something ancient just blinked. This king is a poet at heart, a warrior by necessity. His reign begins with scrolls and festivals but ends with fortresses and flares. At first, he writes love poems to rivers, naming waterfalls after lost ancestors. One ode to do becomes so popular it's painted on the inside of ceramic rice jars. You accidentally eat half a stanza during lunch. But peace, as always, doesn't last. Rumors spread of a coalition of mountain tribes amassing in the west, led by a chieftain who claims to hear the stars. Some say he drinks iron water and rides a beast made of shadow. Others say he just has a really big goat. Hard to say. The king doesn't wait to find out. He assembles a council of tacticians, dreamers and ghost whisperers, all women, all terrifying. One of them trains squirrels to send messages. Another insists on consulting the clouds. You ride with them once through the jungle and get hit in the face by a flying papaya. Not their fault. Mostly ... This war is different. No giant battles, just 1,000 tiny skirmishes. Like the land itself is resisting invasion. Traps built into trees. Songs turned into signal codes. Farmers who vanish into the forest with their tools and emerge with spears. The king introduces a ritual called beating the earth, not for punishment, but to stir sleeping spirits and ask for help. You watch people pound the soil with staffs, then listen. For what? For the answer that feels like thunder. One elder says. Later that night, thunder actually rolls in. You jump, she cackles. Historians still debate whether this king was truly the innovator of asymmetric resistance tactics, or if the methods had already evolved underground for generations. But under him, the tactics get names, rules, songs. Memory turns into method. Fear becomes strategy. Quirky tradition before each raid. Warriors must eat a fermented egg and insult a scarecrow shaped like the enemy. You join once. The scarecrow does not take it well, falls over dramatically. The tide turns with the help of something unexpected, a massive stone drum, unearthed during a landslide and believed to hold ancestral rhythms. The king orders it placed in a hilltop shrine. Whenever it's played, the enemy reportedly retreats, confused or frightened, or maybe just sick of percussion. Eventually, the invading force disappears as suddenly as it arrived. Some say they got lost in a cursed marsh. Others say the spirits chased them home. You suspect the scarecrows had something to do with it. The kingdom, though bruised, survives. And the king, he doesn't throw a victory parade. Instead, he commissions a silent monument, a ring of stones that hum when wind passes through them. Let them sing, he says, but only when the land wants. In his final years, he returns to writing. This time, his poems are shorter, quieter. Your favorite ends with, I saw a cloud shaped like a future I'll never meet. One morning, without warning, he walks alone into the forest, leaves behind his crown, a bowl of rice, and a poem. He is never seen again. The 15th Han King doesn't inherit a throne, he inherits a silence. No drums, no fanfare, just a hush that settles over Van Lang like morning fog, thick with memory and the scent of last night's incense. You watch him approach the ancient throne, still carved from dragonwood, still circled by offerings of sticky rice and paper cranes, and he doesn't sit. Not yet. He kneels. He's younger than most expected, barely into manhood, with sharp eyes and the kind of voice that sounds like it grew up in wind. He speaks to elders, listens to children, and spends his first night sleeping beside the royal koi pond, just to see what the dreams are like. They say he dreamed of a city in the clouds and a flute that called the stars home. His reign begins with rebuilding temples, markets, the people's trust. Villagers return from hiding in forests, children return to learning, and the fish, well, they seem happier. Coincidence? Probably. But you like the idea that koi can smile. You travel with the king on his first royal tour. His entourage consists of a blind Senja, to jugglers, and a historian who speaks only in riddles. It's chaotic, joyful, and forgettable. In one village, the king insists on helping dig a new well. You're terrible at it. He laughs with you, not at you. You start to believe in him. Quirky innovation. He creates whisper courts, nighttime hearings where villagers can speak freely through veils or screens, judged only by words, not status or age. It changes everything. Problems that festered for years get solved in a single moonlit hour. Culturally, it's a golden age. Artists carve rivers into jade. Singers blend languages into lullabies. A young monk invents the first bamboo slide. Originally meant to carry coconuts downhill, kids turn it into the ancient version of a theme park. You may or may not fall off, but shadows loom. Across the sea, new kingdoms stir. Traders arrive with stories of foreign ships, iron chariots, and kings who demand maps of places they've never seen. The young Hun king listens but doesn't flinch. He replies, let them map their own dreams. Ours are already growing. He strengthens border alliances, invites scholars from the highlands, and begins archiving everything oral histories. Ancestor chants, flood myths, even jokes. He tells you, if memory fades, what are we guarding? You nod. You steal one of the jokes. It's not great, but the elders laugh anyway. Historians still debate whether the 15th Hun King anticipated colonization simply, feared forgetting, but his obsession with preservation becomes legendary. He commissions giant bamboo scrolls, each taller than a man, engraved with myths, stars, and recipes for ceremonial soups. And then, just when peace seems solid, nature shudders. The Red River rises in its banks like a serpent waking up. Earthquakes rattle the highlands. A comet carves fire across the sky, glowing green. Panic, not quite. The king gathers his people not with commands, but with stories. Around bonfires, in storm-swept halls, in rice paddies half flooded. He repeats the tale of the mountain dragon who chose love over power, and how the land rewards those who stay rooted. And the people stay. The storms pass, the rivers calm, the stars blink. In his final years, he builds a town not for war, but for watching the wind. Every new moon, he climbs it alone, flute in hand, playing tunes no one's ever written down. On his last night, you climb the tower too. You sit beside him. He says nothing, just plays, and for a moment, you swear the stars gather closer to listen. The next morning, he is gone. Only the flute remains, still warm, before you drift completely into sleep. If this journey through the legends of Vietnam stirred something in you, curiosity, calm, or just a quiet smile, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Not for the algorithm, not for the numbers, just so I know you're out there, walking through history with me, one dream at a time. And if you're still awake, leave a comment with your country and local time. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. New stories come every week, some from the mountains, some from the sea, and each one meant just for nights like this. Now, dim the lights a little more, breathe a little deeper, and let the stories carry you home. Good night, and thank you for dreaming with me.